The chamber fell silent as the last of the counselors entered. Massive beings of varied anatomies, some gelatinous, others encased in exoskeletons, a few floating on anti-gravity devices, all converged around an enormous circular table. 7 seats represented the 7 surviving spacefaring races of the galaxy. And then there was the 8th seat, empty, always empty. The Earth seat, whispered Vela, an Avanther strategist with translucent blue skin that rippled with her emotions. Today, those ripples were jagged, anxious. It remains as it has for 30 years. Thatcher Iraq, the Verulan diplomat whose crystalline structure refracted light into dazzling patterns across the chamber walls, leaned forward, a reminder of cost, a reminder of sacrifice, a reminder that even the most unpredictable species can surprise us with their nobility. Saloon, a massive Marid warrior whose scaled body bore the scars of 100 battles, growled low. The humans knew the price. They chose to pay it. We honor them by remembering, not by sentimentality. The empty seat had become more than furniture. It was a monument. 30 years ago, humanity had faced extinction alongside every other sentient species when the Kralthu Empire emerged from the dark spaces beyond the galactic rim. Their technology had been centuries beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Their warriors, bred for combat across thousands of generations. Their hunger, insatiable. One by one, worlds fell, species negotiated, capitulated, or fought, all with the same result. Extinction came for everyone, methodically, until only 8 spacefaring races remained, huddled together in what would likely be their final stand. And then, humanity did what humanity had always done best, something completely, utterly unexpected. In the void between Proxima Centauri and Earth's solar system, the combined fleet of surviving species prepared for their last defense. The Kralthu Armada approached, impossibly vast, impossibly powerful. Victory was mathematically impossible. But humans didn't believe in mathematical impossibilities. In the darkest hour, Earth deployed what they called the sacrifice. 1,000 ships, every vessel humanity could muster, accelerated to relativistic speeds and collided with the heart of the Kralthu Armada. The explosion tore a hole in space-time itself, creating a localized black hole that devoured most of the enemy fleet. The human ships were lost. Earth's defensive capabilities were annihilated. And in the chaos that followed, the remaining Allied forces managed to defeat the surviving Kralthu. Humanity had saved the galaxy, at the cost of leaving themselves defenseless. When the Kralthu reinforcements arrived 6 months later, Earth had nothing left, no shields, no fleet, no chance. The 7 surviving races could only watch as humanity fought with whatever remained. Orbital platforms, surface-to-space missiles, even primitive aircraft, as the Kralthu bombarded the planet to dust. The screams of the last human communications still haunted the nightmares of those who had heard them. And so the 8th seat remained empty. A testament, a memorial, a reminder of the species that had given everything so others might live, or so everyone believed. A council will commence, announced Krex, the ancient Volturian whose gaseous form swirled within a containment suit. As the eldest representative, he traditionally opened proceedings. We gather once more to address matters of galactic security. Before we begin, let us observe the customary moment of silence for those who no longer sit among us, particularly our human allies. The council chambers fell quiet. 7 different species, 7 different ways of showing respect. The Marid bowed their scaled heads. The Avanther ceased all skin rippling. The Volturians stilled their gaseous forms. The moment ended. And Krex continued. Our first order of business. The massive doors at the end of the chamber slid open with a pneumatic hiss. All heads turned. A bipedal figure stood in the doorway. 2 arms, 2 legs. A head with forward-facing eyes and a flat face. Pink-hued skin, dark hair. Human. Forgive my tardiness, the human said, striding forward with a confidence that belied the impossibility of his existence. Interstellar travel isn't what it used to be. Chaos erupted in the council chamber. Some representatives rose from their seats, others activated defensive shields. Saloon the married warrior drew a ceremonial blade. Silence! Krex's amplified voice thundered through the chamber. The pandemonium subsided, though tension vibrated through the air like a plucked string. The human stood before them, dressed in a simple gray uniform bearing insignia none of them recognized. He appeared male, of middle years by human standards, with a face weathered by experience. Identify yourself, Krex demanded. The human offered what his species called a smile, a facial expression that had always unsettled other races with its display of teeth. Colonel Eric Morrow, Earth Defense Force, Special Operations Division. Impossible, Thatcher Iraq stated flatly, his crystalline form pulsing with agitation. Earth was destroyed. All humans were eradicated. Not quite all, Morrow replied, though nearly. Explain, demanded Saloon, his blade still unsheathed. Eric Morrow looked at the empty seat, Earth's seat, then back at the council. I commanded a deep space reconnaissance vessel. We were beyond the reach of normal communications when Earth fell. By the time we returned to the solar system, there was nothing left but debris and radiation. We've been in hiding since then, gathering intelligence, staying mobile. We? Vela asked, her skin rippling with intense curiosity. My crew, 17 humans, all that remains of our species as far as we know. 17 humans, from billions to 17. The weight of that reality settled over the chamber like a shroud. Why reveal yourself now? Krex asked. After 30 years? Eric Morrow's expression hardened. Because something's coming. Something worse than the Kralthu. And I believe Earth's seat at this council should be filled for what lies ahead. The human stepped forward and placed his hand on the back of the empty chair that had served as humanity's memorial for 3 decades. We need to talk about the Void Heralds. The name sent a collective shudder through the council. Legends. Myths. Nightmares. The Void Heralds were whispered about in ancient texts across a dozen worlds. Beings from outside the universe itself who periodically entered reality to harvest entire galaxies. Most considered them mere stories. Bogeymen invented to frighten children. But the human's expression suggested otherwise. You've encountered these Void Heralds? Krex asked carefully. Not directly, Saddam, but we've tracked their scout ships for the past 5 years, and they're real. They're coming, and they make the Kralthu look like children playing with toys. Saloon laughed, a harsh, grating sound. Convenient timing. Human. You appear from nowhere with tales of mythical enemies to justify your existence. Eric Morrow didn't flinch. I've brought evidence. He extracted a small device from his pocket and placed it on the council table. A holographic display sprang to life, showing sensor readings, navigational data, and images of sleek, black ships unlike any design known to the council. Hey, these readings, Vela whispered, her skin now completely still with shock. The energy signatures are impossible. That's just it, Morrow said. They're not using energy as we understand it. They're using something else, something from outside our universe. The council members exchanged troubled glances. If what you say is true, Krex began, then we face an extinction-level threat beyond anything we've encountered. Yes. And you believe 17 humans can make a difference? Eric Morrow's lips curved into that unsettling human smile again. We made a difference last time, didn't we? No one could argue with that. Humanity's final sacrifice had saved the galaxy. I claim Earth's seat on this council, Morrow stated firmly. Not for myself, but for what remains of humanity. We offer our knowledge, our perspective, and our unique approach to impossible situations. The council chamber fell silent once more. The 7 representatives looked at one another, a silent conversation happening through glances and subtle gestures. Finally, Krex spoke. The seat has remained empty as a mark of respect. To fill it. With all due respect, Morrow interrupted. My people didn't die so you could keep an empty chair. They died so you could live. And now, all of us, every species, faces annihilation again. I think they'd want that chair filled if it meant a fighting chance. Saloon sheathed his blade with a dramatic flourish. The human speaks with wisdom and courage. I vote to recognize him as Earth's representative. One by one, the other council members voiced their agreement, some enthusiastically, others with reservation. Then it is decided, Krex announced. Colonel Eric Morrow, you are recognized as Earth's representative to the Galactic Security Council. Please take your seat. For the first time in 30 years, a human sat in Earth's chair. The council session that followed was unlike any in memory. Eric Morrow presented detailed intelligence on the Void Herald scout ships, their patterns, capabilities, and the few weaknesses his small crew had managed to identify. Their hulls absorb most conventional weapons, he explained. Energy-based attacks actually seem to strengthen them. But we've observed vulnerabilities to certain frequencies of gravitational distortion. Gravitational weapons are theoretically possible, Vela mused, but no one has successfully developed them. Earth was working on prototype gravity manipulation technology before the fall. Morrow revealed, we have the research data, but not the resources to implement it. Thatcher Iraq's crystalline form brightened with interest. Verilyn quantum engineers could potentially adapt such research. We would need to see the data. You'll have it, Morrow promised. But there's a larger strategic question we need to address. The Void Heralds aren't just powerful, they're methodical. They're studying us, learning our defenses, our weaknesses. When they finally launch their main invasion, they'll know exactly how to counter our conventional tactics. What do you propose? Krex asked. We need to be unpredictable. Do what they won't expect. It's what saved us against the Kralthu, at least temporarily. Saloon growled in disapproval. Your unpredictability resulted in your species' near extinction. Yes, Morrow acknowledged, his voice steady. But it also saved everyone else. Sometimes victory requires sacrifice. The meeting continued for hours, strategies debated, contingencies considered. The council had grown accustomed to methodical, logical approaches to threats. Humanity's representative challenged this at every turn, proposing bold, sometimes seemingly reckless alternatives. You suggest we abandon the coreward defense line? Thatcher Iraq asked incredulously after one such proposal. It's our strongest position, which makes it the most obvious target, Morrow countered. The Void Heralds will expect us to concentrate our forces there. If we instead create a distributed defense network, emphasizing mobility over fixed positions, we force them to adapt to us rather than the other way around. Such a strategy increases risk to civilian populations, Vela pointed out, her skin rippling with concern. Compared to the risk of total extinction? Morrow asked quietly. By the session's end, no consensus had been reached. The council agreed to reconvene after members had time to consult with their respective military commands. Eric Morrow returned to his small ship docked at the council station. Inside, 17 faces, the last humans in existence, looked to him expectantly. Well, asked Commander Sophia Chen, his second in command. Will they listen? Morrow sighed, dropping into a seat. They'll listen. Whether they'll act is another matter entirely. They're cautious, methodical. Everything humans aren't, Sophia said with a wry smile. Everything the Void Heralds are counting on, Morrow corrected. If we fight this war their way, we've already lost. Lieutenant Marcus Way, their tactical officer, leaned forward. Then we'll have to show them our way. Exactly, Morrow agreed, and that starts with Operation Eclipse. The 17 humans gathered around a holographic display showing a small scout ship of Void Herald design. The impossible black of its hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. If we can capture one of their scout ships, Morrow explained, we gain two advantages. First, we can study their technology up close. Second, we demonstrate to the Council that unconventional tactics can succeed where conventional ones would fail. The risk is considerable, Dr. Eleanor Patel, their chief scientist, pointed out. We've observed these scouts destroying themselves rather than being captured. That's why we need to disable it completely in a single strike. Morrow replied, no time for self-destruct protocols. The humans spent the night refining their plan, calculating trajectories, contingencies, and fail-safes. They worked with the desperate efficiency of a species on the brink of extinction, with nothing left to lose but everything to fight for. The next morning, Arik Morrow returned to the Council with dark circles under his eyes but a determined set to his jaw. Before we continue yesterday's discussions, he announced, I'd like to propose a concrete action. My team has identified a Void Herald scout ship operating at the edge of the Alaris sector. We intend to capture it. The Council erupted in protests. Impossible. Reckless. Suicidal. Morrow waited for the outcry to subside. We're not asking for permission, he said calmly. As Earth's representative, I'm informing you of our intent and requesting minimal support, specifically, a Marid stealth corvette to transport our strike team. Saloon rose to his full, imposing height. You would risk one of our vessels on this foolhardy mission? I would risk 17 humans, the last of our kind, on this mission. Morrow countered, we're asking for a ship, not crew. My people will pilot it. To what end? Krex demanded. Even if you succeeded, a dubious proposition, what would one captured scout ship tell us that your existing observations have not? That sometimes you need to take apart the machine to understand how it works. Morrow replied. But more importantly, this is about proving a point. The Void Heralds believe they understand us, that they can predict our actions. They've never encountered humans before. They don't know what we're capable of. The debate raged for hours. In the end, the Council reluctantly agreed to provide the requested corvette, but with conditions. The mission would be classified as unauthorized. The Council would deny all knowledge if it failed, and no additional resources would be committed to rescue the humans if things went wrong. Morrow accepted these terms without hesitation. 3 days later, a Marid stealth corvette slipped away from the Council station, its systems dampened to near undetectable levels. Aboard were 17 humans, soldiers, scientists, engineers, armed with determination and a plan that any other species would consider insane. The Council waited. Hours turned to days. No word came from the human mission. They failed, Thatcher Iraq declared on the 4th day, predictably. Perhaps, Krex allowed, or perhaps communication would compromise their position. They were doomed from the start, Saloon growled. Brave but foolish. On the 7th day, alarms blared throughout the Council station. A ship had breached the security perimeter without authorization. A ship of impossible black that absorbed light rather than reflected it. A Void Herald scout ship. Defense systems activated automatically. Weapon emplacement swiveled to target the intruder. Council members were rushed to secure locations. And then, a transmission. A council station control. This is Colonel Arik Morrow. Call off your defenses. We're coming in hot in a, shall we say, recently acquired vehicle. Disbelief gave way to astonishment as the Void Herald scout ship docked at the station. From it emerged 16 humans, one fewer than had departed, looking exhausted but triumphant. An emergency council session was convened immediately. Arik Morrow stood before them, still wearing a spacesuit stained with what appeared to be both human blood and an iridescent purple fluid of unknown origin. How? Krex demanded simply. We observed that the scout ships use a form of quantum entanglement for communication. Morrow explained. We created a momentary disruption in the entanglement field, isolating the scout from its command structure. Then we approached using modified stealth technology, attached magnetic grapples to create localized hull stress at structural weak points, and breached with shaped charges designed to minimize internal damage. The explanation made it sound clinical, logical. It omitted the desperate hand-to-hand combat inside the alien vessel, the loss of Engineer Patel, the moments when failure seemed certain. The ship's pilot attempted to activate a self-destruct mechanism. Morrow continued. But Dr. Eleanor Patel sacrificed herself to prevent it, physically disrupting the energy conduits with her own body. A moment of silence fell over the council for the fallen human. What have you learned from this capture? Vela asked, her skin rippling with scientific curiosity. Everything, Morrow replied. The ship's navigation system contains coordinates for what we believe is the Void Herald staging area. Their weapons are based on principles we barely understand, but can potentially counter. Most importantly, we've confirmed they're vulnerable to certain types of attack they haven't evolved defenses against, because no one has been insane enough to try such attacks. Saloon observed with what might have been respect in his growling voice. Precisely. Morrow agreed. The Void Heralds have encountered thousands of species across countless galaxies. They've developed countermeasures for every conventional tactic, but they've never met humans. The atmosphere in the council chamber shifted subtly. Skepticism remained, but alongside it grew something new. Hope. What do you propose? Krex asked. Morrow took a deep breath. A joint operation. We share everything we've learned about the Void Herald ship. Your scientists reverse engineer what they can. Your military leaders contribute conventional forces. And my people. We provide the unexpected element. And what would that be? Thatcher Iraq inquired. We're going to take the fight to them. Morrow said simply. We're going to attack their staging area before their invasion fleet assembles. The council erupted once more. Preemptive strikes were virtually unheard of in galactic warfare. Defensive postures had been the norm for millennia. Madness, Thatcher Iraq declared. We don't have the forces to launch an offensive against an enemy of this magnitude. We don't need overwhelming force, Morrow countered. We need precision, timing, and the element of surprise. The Void Heralds are still gathering their fleet. If we strike now, we can cripple their invasion before it begins. And if we fail? Vela asked, her skin now pale with anxiety. Then we're no worse off than waiting for them to attack us at full strength. Morrow replied. But I don't intend to fail. The debate lasted days. Military advisors were consulted. Scientists pored over the captured scout ship. Strategic simulations were run hundreds of times with varying parameters. Every conventional analysis predicted failure. The Void Heralds were too powerful, their technology too advanced. Yet the humans persisted. They proposed unorthodox tactics, suggested combinations of technologies never before integrated, outlined attack vectors that defied standard military doctrine. Slowly, improbably, A plan took shape, a plan that no single species would have conceived, but that emerged from the desperate creativity of humanity's last survivors combined with the technological prowess of 7 advanced civilizations. 3 weeks after the capture of the scout ship, a fleet assembled near the council station. Not the massive armada one might expect for such a mission, but a surgical strike force, fast attack vessels, stealth ships, and a handful of capital ships modified according to human specifications. At its center was the captured Void Herald scout ship, now retrofitted with an improbable mix of technologies from all 8 species. The night before the fleet's departure, the Council held a final session. Military commanders presented last-minute intelligence. Scientists reviewed technical preparations. Contingency plans were confirmed. Throughout it all, Arik Morrow sat quietly in Earth's chair, listening, occasionally offering a suggestion or asking a question. When the formal proceedings concluded, he rose to address the Council. Tomorrow, we face an enemy that has consumed entire galaxies, he began. By any rational assessment, our chances are slim. But 30 years ago, humanity faced similar odds against the Kralthu. We chose to act rather than submit. We chose to fight rather than surrender. We chose to sacrifice rather than see all sentient life extinguished. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes or sensory organs of each council member in turn. 16 humans remain in the universe, 16 out of billions. We have lost everything, our world, our families, our future as a species. Yet tomorrow every single one of us will board those ships. Every single one of us will risk what little we have left. His voice grew stronger, filling the chamber. Not because we expect to win, not because we have some secret advantage, but because some things are worth fighting for, even when victory seems impossible. Because sometimes, the fight itself matters more than the outcome. A hush fell over the council chamber. I ask only this, Morrow continued. If we fall tomorrow, if humanity finally joins the countless species consigned to extinction, remember us not for how we died, but for how we lived. Remember that we faced oblivion not once, but twice, and each time we chose to stand against it rather than kneel before it. He gestured to the chair he had occupied for the past month, Earth's chair, no longer empty. And if the time comes when this seat is empty once more, let it remain so. Not as a memorial to what was lost, but as a challenge to what remains. A reminder that there is always a choice between surrender and defiance, between safety and sacrifice. Arik Morrow bowed his head slightly, a gesture of respect to the council. It has been an honor to represent Earth in these chambers. May whatever gods you believe in watch over us all tomorrow. With that, he turned and left the chamber, leaving behind a profound silence. The fleet departed at dawn, 16 humans distributed among the ships, each lending their unique perspective to the coming battle. Arik Morrow commanded the retrofitted Void Herald scout ship at the vanguard, leading the way to coordinates extracted from the vessel's navigation system. The journey took 3 days through conventional space, followed by a series of precisely calculated jumps through subspace. Each transition brought them closer to what intelligence suggested was the staging area for the Void Herald invasion fleet. The final jump would place them directly at the edge of the staging area, a point of no return. Before giving the order, Morrow opened a channel to the entire fleet. All ships, this is Colonel Morrow. In moments, we will engage an enemy of unparalleled power. Remember your training, trust your instincts, and know that history watches us today. Whatever happens, it has been my profound honor to serve alongside each of you. He closed the channel and nodded to his navigator, Sophia Chen, the last human woman in existence. Take us in, The jump completed, and reality reasserted itself around them. Before them spread a sight both awesome and terrifying. A vast nebula, artificially created, swirled with energies no natural phenomenon could produce. Within it, thousands of Void Herald ships hung suspended, some small scouts like the one they had captured, others massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed even the largest council vessels. And at the center, a structure that defied comprehension, a spherical lattice of impossible black, spanning thousands of kilometers, pulsing with energy that seemed to distort the very fabric of space around it. "The gateway," Morrow whispered, recognizing it from ancient texts they had studied. "They're not just invading, they're creating a permanent doorway between universes." Their stealth would not last long. Already, movement could be detected among the nearest Void Herald vessels as they registered the intruders. "All ships execute attack pattern Lazarus," Morrow ordered. The fleet dispersed according to the plan, each vessel targeting predetermined objectives. The battle was joined with furious intensity. Conventional wisdom would have dictated concentration of forces, focusing firepower on key targets. But the human plan called for the opposite: dispersal, multiple simultaneous strikes at seemingly random points throughout the Void Herald formation. Chaos, unpredictability, the antithesis of the methodical, calculating nature of their enemy. At first, it seemed to work. The Void Heralds, accustomed to facing enemies who followed logical battle doctrines, struggled to counter attacks coming from a dozen directions at once, each using different tactics. But their advantage could not last. The sheer technological superiority of the Void Heralds began to tell. One by one, council ships fell to weapons that twisted physics itself. "They're adapting," Sophia reported grimly as their sensors showed enemy vessels regrouping, forming new defensive patterns. "Learning our tactics." "Then we change the game," Morrow decided. "All ships. This is Morrow. Execute Operation Wildcard." This was the contingency they had hoped to avoid, a desperate gambit with minimal chance of success. But as council ships continued to fall, it became their only option. The captured scout ship that Morrow commanded accelerated toward the gateway structure at the center of the nebula. His small crew, 3 humans and 2 Avanther engineers, worked frantically to reconfigure the ship's systems according to Dr. Eleanor Patel's final theoretical work. "If we can create a cascading quantum disruption within the gateway's energy matrix," Morrow explained to his crew, "we might be able to collapse the entire structure." "And what happens when a bridge between universes collapses?" one of the Avanther engineers asked nervously. "Nothing good," Morrow admitted. "But whatever happens will affect the Void Heralds more than us." As they approached the gateway, enemy fire intensified. The scout ship's shields, enhanced with council technology, strained against weapons they were never designed to withstand. "Shields at 30%, Sophia reported. "We won't survive another direct hit." "We don't need to survive," Morrow reminded her. "We just need to reach the gateway." Around them, the space battle continued to rage. Council ships fought with desperate courage, but they were clearly outmatched. For every Void Herald vessel they managed to disable, 3 council ships were lost. "Colonel," Sophia said quietly, "the Marid dreadnought Indomitable has fallen. Saloon was aboard." Morrow closed his eyes briefly. The gruff Marid warrior had become, if not a friend, then a respected ally. 10,000 meters to gateway perimeter," the navigation officer announced. "Arm the quantum disruptors," Morrow ordered. "Prepare for manual targeting." The weapons they had cobbled together from Void Herald technology and council science were untested. Theoretical, the desperate gamble of a species with nothing left to lose. 5,000 meters. Enemy targeting systems locked on. "Evasive pattern Delta," Morrow commanded. "Don't push the engines beyond safety protocols." The scout ship lurched as it executed a series of maneuvers no vessel was designed to perform. Metal groaned. Warning alarms blared, but they gained precious seconds. 2,000 meters, the quantum disruptors charged to 80%. "It'll have to do," Morrow decided. "On my mark." The ship shuddered violently as enemy fire struck its port side. Systems failed across the board. Sophia was thrown from her station, a gash opening across her forehead. "Direct hit," someone reported unnecessarily. "Engines failing. Shields collapsed." "Drift trajectory?" Morrow demanded, helping Sophia back to her station. The navigation officer checked his displays. "We'll reach the gateway, sir, but we won't be able to maneuver for optimal targeting." Morrow nodded grimly. "We make do with what we have. Sophia, can you still operate the quantum disruptors?" She wiped blood from her eyes, leaving a crimson streak across her face. "Yes, sir." "Then that's our shot. Everyone else, prepare evacuation protocols." The other crew members exchanged glances. There was nowhere to evacuate to. This deep in enemy territory, surrounded by Void Herald ships, escape pods would be targeted and destroyed within seconds. Morrow saw their expressions and nodded in understanding. "I know, but I'll be damned if humans go extinct without a fight. Sophia and I will handle the disruptors. The rest of you, take the emergency shuttle. Create a distraction. Draw their fire. Give us those few extra seconds we need." "Sir," one of the humans began to protest. "That's an order." Morrow cut him off. "Humanity survives this day, even if it's just a handful of us. Now go." Reluctantly, the crew obeyed. The small emergency shuttle detached from the crippled scout ship, immediately executing evasive maneuvers and firing its limited weapons at nearby Void Herald vessels. As predicted, enemy ships diverted attention to this new threat, giving the drifting scout ship precious moments of relative safety as it continued its ballistic trajectory toward the gateway. Inside the scout ship bridge, only Arik Morrow and Sophia Chen remained. "500 meters to gateway perimeter," Sophia reported. "Quantum disruptors at full charge." Morrow moved to the targeting console. "We'll only get one shot. The disruptors will burn out after firing." "Make it count," Sophia said simply. Through the viewport, the gateway loomed impossibly large, a lattice of absolute darkness against the swirling energies of the artificial nebula. Up close, they could see that what had appeared solid from a distance was actually composed of thousands of smaller structures, each pulsing with energy that hurt the eyes to look at directly. 200 meters, entering the gateway's energy field. The ship shuddered again, but not from weapons fire. The very fabric of reality seemed to distort around them as they penetrated the outer boundary of the gateway's influence. "Targeting systems failing," Morrow reported, and switching to manual, using skills honed over decades of space combat. He aligned the quantum disruptors with what sensors suggested was a key node in the gateway's structure. 100 meters, energy field intensity increasing. Alarms blared as the ship's hull began to buckle under stresses it was never designed to withstand. Displays flickered and died. Life support systems shut down one by one. 50 meters, Sophia gasped, the air growing thin as oxygen scrubbers failed. "Ready to fire on your command." Morrow's hand hovered over the firing control. Everything, the entire operation, the fate of the galaxy, the future of what remained of humanity, came down to this moment. "For Earth," he whispered and pressed the control. The quantum disruptors fired, releasing energy in patterns designed to cascade through the gateway's structure, disrupting the precise quantum states that allowed it to bridge universes. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then a tremor ran through the gateway. A single node, the one they had targeted, flickered, its impossible blackness briefly replaced by blinding light. The tremor spread, one node after another. The gateway began to destabilize, The process accelerated exponentially, each failure triggering others in a chain reaction. "It's working," Sophia breathed wonder in her voice despite the dire situation. Through the viewport, they watched as the massive structure began to collapse in on itself. Space itself seemed to warp and twist around the failing gateway, creating distortions that propagated outward like ripples in a pond. The first ripple hit their ship, tearing through the hull as if it were paper. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, temporarily preserving the bridge, but the structural integrity alerts made it clear the vessel wouldn't survive much longer. "The gateway is collapsing," Sophia reported, clinging to her console as the ship shuddered violently. Energy readings off the scale. Around them, Void Herald ships caught in the expanding distortion field began to disintegrate, their impossible technology no match for the fundamental forces now tearing reality apart at the seams. "I send the signal," Morrow ordered. With failing systems, Sophia managed to transmit the predetermined code to the surviving Council fleet. "Operation Wildcard successful. Retreat immediately." "Colonel," Sophia said, looking up from her console with a strange calm. "It's been an honor." Morrow nodded, reaching across to clasp her hand as the bridge around them began to break apart. "The honor has been mine." The distortion reached them fully, and for a brief moment, Arik Morrow experienced something beyond normal perception, a glimpse of whatever lay on the other side of the gateway, a reality operating under laws that human minds were never meant to comprehend. Then darkness. When Arik Morrow regained consciousness, his first sensation was pain, sharp, insistent, but undeniably real. Pain meant life. Somehow, against all odds, he was alive. He forced his eyes open. He lay in what appeared to be a medical facility, surrounded by the distinctive architecture and technology of a council installation. Monitoring devices recorded his vital signs. Transparent tubes fed fluids into his body. "The human awakens," a familiar voice observed. Morrow turned his head with effort. Krex, the ancient Volturian counselor, hovered near his bedside, gaseous form swirling within his containment suit. Morrow managed to croak, his throat parched. "Remarkable resilience," Krex replied. "Your vessel was caught in a temporal distortion when the gateway collapsed. While most of it was destroyed instantly, the bridge section was flung clear through a spontaneous wormhole. Our recovery teams found it drifting in normal space 2 light-years from the battle site." Morrow tried to sit up, but his body refused to cooperate. "Sophia?" Krex's gaseous form dimmed slightly, the Volturian equivalent of lowering one's head in respect. Commander Chen did not survive. Her injuries were too severe. The news hit Morrow like a physical blow. Sophia had been with him since the beginning, one of the few constants in a universe that had taken everything else from him. "The others?" he asked, dreading the answer. "The humans from the emergency shuttle?" "Gone," Krex confirmed gently, "as are 60% of the Council fleet." Morrow closed his eyes, absorbing the magnitude of the loss. 16 humans reduced to 1, the last of his species. Truly alone. "But," Krex continued, "the gateway was destroyed. The Void Herald invasion force was decimated. Those that survived have retreated to whatever realm they came from. Their means of entry to our universe collapsed." Victory, then, at terrible cost, but victory nonetheless. "How long have I been unconscious?" Morrow asked. 3 weeks," Krex replied. "No, your injuries were extensive. We used experimental regeneration techniques to save you." 3 weeks. 3 weeks in which he had been, to his knowledge, the last human in existence. "The Council wishes to speak with you when you are able," Krex informed him. "There is much to discuss regarding the future." "Future," Morrow repeated, the word tasting strange on his tongue. He had not thought beyond the mission, beyond the desperate gamble against the Void Heralds. What future could there be for the last human? Rest now, Krex advised. Healing takes time, even with our medical technology. The Volturian departed, leaving Morrow alone with his thoughts and the steady beep of monitoring equipment. Days passed. Physical recovery progressed faster than emotional healing. Morrow learned to walk again, to use his body that had been broken and mended by alien technology. But the weight of being the last, the very last, pressed down on him with every breath. When he was finally deemed strong enough, he was escorted to the council chamber. The same chamber where, weeks earlier, he had sat in Earth's chair and proposed the desperate mission that had saved the galaxy but cost him everything. The council members rose as he entered, a mark of respect rarely shown. 7 representatives of 7 species, each owing their continued existence to human sacrifice. Colonel Arik Morrow, Krex began formally. The Galactic Security Council extends its profound gratitude for your actions against the Void Herald threat. Your courage, and that of your fallen comrades, will be recorded in the histories of all our worlds. Morrow acknowledged this with a slight nod. Words of thanks, however sincere, could not bring back his people. There is the matter, Krex continued, of Earth's seat on this council. Morrow's eyes drifted to the chair he had occupied before the mission. Earth's chair. In his absence, it had remained empty once more. As the sole surviving human, Krex said, you have the right to claim that seat, to continue representing your species in matters of galactic security. Morrow approached the chair slowly. He placed his hand on its back, feeling the cool material beneath his fingers. For a moment, he could almost hear the voices of billions of humans who would never speak again, could almost feel the weight of a planet turned to dust. No, he said finally. The council members exchanged surprised glances. You decline? Thatcher Iraq asked, his crystalline form pulsing with confusion. I decline, Morrow confirmed. Humanity's voice in this council has been heard. Our final contribution has been made. He stepped back from the chair, standing straight despite his still healing injuries. Let the seat remain empty, not as a memorial but as a reminder. A reminder that sometimes the greatest victory comes from the greatest sacrifice. A reminder that even extinction cannot erase what a species contributes to the universe. He looked around the chamber, meeting each counselor's gaze in turn. Humanity is finished. I am the last, and when I die, we will be gone entirely. But what we stood for, our courage, our creativity, our willingness to defy impossible odds, that can live on through your actions, through your choices. Morrow bowed formally to the council. I thank you for the honor you would bestow upon me, but my path lies elsewhere now. Krex's gaseous form swirled thoughtfully. And where will you go, last son of Earth? There are corners of the galaxy we never explored, mysteries we never solved. For whatever time I have left, I'll carry humanity's curiosity to those places. And perhaps, someday, I'll find a world where I can rest, knowing I carried our legacy as far as one man could. The council did not try to dissuade him. Perhaps they understood that the last human needed to chart his own course, to find his own meaning in an existence defined by loss. Before departing, Morrow attended one final council session. Formal resolutions were passed commemorating humanity's sacrifice. The empty chair was officially designated as a permanent memorial, never to be filled by any other species. As the session concluded, Saloon's replacement, a younger Marid named Krell, approached Morrow. My predecessor spoke highly of you in his final communications. The Marid rumbled. He said humans understand something the rest of us have forgotten. That true victory sometimes requires absolute sacrifice. Morrow nodded. We learned that lesson the hardest way possible. Your ship is prepared, Krell informed him. The Council has equipped it with the best technology from all our worlds. you will not want for resources on your journey. Thank you, Morrow said simply. He departed the next day with little ceremony. A small vessel, built to be operated by a single pilot, waited in the docking bay. Sleek and fast, it incorporated technologies from all the Council species, designed to carry the last human wherever he might choose to go. Before boarding, Morrow took one last look around the Council station. For a brief moment, he had found a place here, a purpose, a reason to continue after losing everything. But that chapter was closed now. The future, whatever remained of it for the last human, lay among the stars. Years passed, decades. The legend of humanity's sacrifice spread throughout the galaxy. New species rose to spacefaring status and joined the Council. Hearing the tale of the empty chair and the species that had twice faced extinction to save others. Some claim to have encountered a solitary human in the far reaches of the galaxy. An aging man in a unique ship who appeared when help was most needed, then vanished again into the depths of space. Others dismiss such stories as myth, the inevitable embellishment of history. The Galactic Security Council continued its work, maintaining peace, addressing threats, resolving disputes, and at every session, for centuries to come. Earth's chair remained empty, not as a symbol of loss, but as a reminder of what one species had taught the galaxy. That some principles are worth any sacrifice. That courage in the face of impossible odds defines civilization more than any technology or power, and that even extinction cannot erase a legacy of defiance against the darkness. In council chambers across the galaxy, when difficult decisions loomed and compromise seemed impossible, representatives would often glance at the empty chair, Earth's chair, and ask themselves, what would the humans do? And somehow, that question often led to the right answer.